Retrieving identity column values in SQL Server. Hi, I'm M. Asif Hussain from KnowHow Academy. What are we going to learn in this video? We are going to learn how should we create one identity column. We are going to see how we have to retrieve the identity column values in SQL Server. We are also going to see how can we create a trigger with one simple example. By the end of this video, you could get a very clear understanding on how we have to create the identity column in SQL Server. Along with that, you are even going to learn and understand 2 to 3 functions which are related to retrieve the identity column values in SQL Server, and also how we have to create a trigger with one simple example. So watch till the end. My dear viewers, here, whenever we are trying to create a table, it's very difficult for us to go and create the IDs. For example, let us consider the student ID. There might be a number of students. It's very difficult to go and enter each and individual student ID. Let us consider the employee information. It's very difficult to go and insert the individual employee ID information. Am I right? So here what we are going to do, we are going to set up one identity for a column in SQL Server. So let's first understand how can we create the identity. Number one, the way that we have is that we can go and create in this way. For example, if I am creating a table such as a table name, let us consider CUS. We are opening the bracket with the CUS as a customer ID integer. Then I am going to choose here as identity 1, 1, and I am marking it as a primary key. So this is how you can create a identity for one column. Or we also have an option that we can use SQL Server interface whenever we are trying to create a column. So what we are going to do, for instance, let me go and just create a new table here. So when I'm creating a new table, if I would like to choose it as a customer ID, okay, then here let me choose the data type as integer. Then I am marking this particular column which is customer ID under the column properties. If I just expand the identity specification, it is no here. Let me click on yes. When I click on yes, we can see identity 1, 1. So now what I'm doing, I'm marking this as a primary key, and again I'm choosing another column here as a customer name. So what I'm doing, the customer name data type, I'm considering it as a n varchar 50, and now I am saving this particular table as a CUS customer table 2. Okay, customer table 2. Now let me click on OK. So I have created a table. So now if we see here, we have two tables. One, we have customer T1 as a table, and we also have another table as a select star from customer T2. Okay, that's what we have created. All right. So now if we retrieve these two tables, we can see that customer ID, customer name, customer ID and customer name. Under the customer table 1, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 records in it. Am I right? So with the information Asif, Hussain, Mittal and Hussain. Okay. So now what is the last identity value? That's what I have to say it. So what is the last identity value in the T1 table? It's 4. Okay, that's what I have to see it. So for that what I'm doing, is that if you see here, we have a function called scope identity. So for this function, what I'm trying to do, if I execute it, so we can see that the 4 is my last identity value. This is my last identity value. If I insert some new record, let us consider that is 5. Now that is 1 also, that is the last identity value. So now we also have another function called as identity. So if we execute both are giving me the same value 4. Okay, both are giving the same value as 4 and 4. Now what is the difference? Okay, so when we don't know what is the difference between two functions, then why these two are giving the same value? Okay, what is the use? Which one should we use it? So for that, let me relate it with a simple example. So let's consider that as we already created two particular tables. So now what I am doing, I am creating a trigger. Create trigger. If you are new to this triggers concept, we already have created DDL triggers, DML triggers, and logon triggers in our KnowHow Academy YouTube playlist. You can watch it for a reference. So I am creating a trigger. Usually trigger name starts with TR, and I am creating it for the insert event on which particular table. Let me consider the customer T1 table. So for insert event, I am creating this one as begin. Now I am beginning it, and as I have begun it, I am ending this one. In between, let me write a message. So message is that print. So what I am printing, so it's a value that you would like to print. So we generally use print as a word when we are using it for the languages such as programming languages. So here what I'm trying to do, I'm going to insert the values as we do not have any value under the customer T2 table. As you can see, customer T2 table, we don't have any value. Okay, let me show you what is the difference. So now what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to insert the values, insert into, and my table name is customer T2. What I'm inserting some values as I have already created that as an identity column. So what I'm doing, I'm just creating some other name such as Raj. Okay, so now what I'm doing it here, I am just executing it. Commands completed successfully. Okay, so now if we see here, we do not have okay, this value Raj here. Am I right? We do not have this value Raj here. Okay, the reason is that we have created this trigger on the T1 table for insert event. So now what I am trying to do, let me go and insert into, what is the table name? Customer T1. So what I'm inserting here, I'm inserting some values. Okay, let me consider the name as Ajay. Okay, I'm considering this name as Ajay. So now if you see here, if I'm executing this, I'm getting one row affected 2 times, because the record is getting saved, the record is getting inserted for customer T1 table, then in the customer T2 table. Okay, so now when I execute it, it's telling me that it is executed. Now if I retrieve the table, as I have executed 2 times, if we see that, okay, 5th record is Ajay, 6th record is Ajay. Now the point is that one I have created here for Raj, because for the insert event I have created, whenever the insert event is happening, okay, so this particular message that we have given it under the trigger, that will be printed. All right, so now the point is that when I use this as a scope identity, then if you see that 6 is the last identity value and 2 is the last identity value, that's where we have got the difference. Between scope identity and global variable identity. Okay, so whenever we are trying to retrieve the identity values in a column in SQL Server, we can use the scope identity or just the global variable identity here in SQL Server. So the benefit is that, so whenever we are creating this trigger, and for example, if we are blocking one table and inserting the values into 2, then that's how we get the difference between these two. So in this video, we have learned how we can retrieve the identity columns in SQL Server, and what are those 2 functions, the inbuilt functions we have to retrieve the values of identity in a column in SQL Server. So thank you for choosing KnowHow Academy as your source for IT knowledge. We are always here to help you to navigate the tech world. If you have any questions, do not hesitate to reach out. It's been a pleasure sharing this information with you. Stay curious and keep learning.